Hello, and welcome to today's Wednesday Words, where we'll be talking about confidence spirals, the two types when it comes to communication. Let me ask you a question. Do confident communicators feel confident 100% of the time? Do all those TED speakers and confident presenters and people that you look up to and think, wow, they really know how to land a message and to get across what they want to say? Do they always feel confident? Let me share a bit of a secret with you today. And this is something that we kind of make assumptions around. And so I really wanted to bust this myth. People who are confident, of course, they feel confident most of the time. However, it certainly doesn't happen 100% of the time. Just like everybody else, there are good days and there are bad days. For me personally, there are days when I just don't feel it for whatever reason that might be. It might be that it's particularly the context. Perhaps it's the topic or the group of people. Maybe it's something that's happened earlier in my day that's impacting me and how I'm communicating. So I want to share that because we often think about confidence when it comes to communication as something to achieve, a tick in the box. Yes, once we get there, tick, we've done it, we've achieved it, and it just stays there. We don't have to worry about this anymore. But of course, that's just not the reality. Just like any skill, it's like a muscle. You're building up the confidence muscle, and the more you practice, the more you focus, of course, you're going to improve. However, there are certainly days when it doesn't go according to plan, and that is totally okay. So what I wanted to share today was that actually there are two kinds of confidence spiral. And I think this is quite helpful to think about the idea of communication confidence and might help you in situations where perhaps things haven't gone particularly according to plan, but also can help you plan for more positive communication, for making sure that you come across in the way that you want to when you speak up and share your message. Okay, so let's talk about the first kind of spiral. This is called the downward confidence spiral. And maybe you recognize this, a situation where maybe it's been an important meeting or a presentation, whether that's internally or you've been meeting clients, and it hasn't really happened in the way that you wanted. You weren't as clear as you wanted to be, or maybe you heard your voice in your own head and you started to get stuck in your head around, oh no, I don't sound like how I want to. And the more we focus on it, the more it becomes a challenge for us. And in fact, sometimes what happens is if it didn't really go how we wanted, is that we end up completing the meeting or the presentation and we go away and we're still replaying the situation in our mind and thinking about it and cringing maybe even about what we said or how we said it. Now, clearly, this is not very positive. In fact, it's a very negative impact on us. And if we're not careful, it can actually impact our future communication. So we need to make sure that we think about how do we deal with this? How do we react when we've had one of those bad days and we're in this downward confidence spiral? Well, I want to share with you some tips for that today. And I think there are a few things that we can do. They may not work 100% of the time, but I think they are definitely worth trying to help us break the pattern of the downward spiral and to help us move on. So the first thing that we have to do is accept it. We have to accept that that day, whatever the reason might have been, wasn't the most perfect communication that we did. And it is absolutely okay. So we have to accept it rather than fight it and keep kind of focusing on what happened. That's the first point. The second point is that we need to then draw the line. We need to draw the line that says, okay, I'm going to move on from this. I'm not going to think about it anymore because it's not helping me. A plan for future presentations and meetings, and for me to feel confident in the future. The third thing is to know that we don't have to be perfect. So, you know what, I know that there are certain situations where we've been very well prepared and we do want to come across exactly how we wanted to, but we all make mistakes in our communication, every single one of us. I'm sure if you watch 100 TED Talks, you'll notice that every single person makes a mistake at some point. And that's just natural, and it makes us more human, and it means that people connect to us more. So please do not worry about the mistakes or sounding perfect. For me, this is not kind of the objective. The objective is to connect through your communication. And then finally, if you do want to take anything from the situation, think about what you can learn. And by this, I mean, what would you do differently next time? So there are certain factors that you may not be able to influence, such as context, people, what happened just before you had that meeting or presentation. But think about, is there anything that you can control? And that's the important point, what you can actually change, which would make a difference next time to improve your performance. So that's a little bit about the downward confidence spiral and some advice from me about how you might be able to break that pattern and potentially move forward to have more positive attitude towards communication next time. Now let's talk about the other type of confidence spiral. And I call this the positive confidence spiral. Probably not a big surprise, you could probably guess that. And as you can imagine, this is a really good place to be. And really this idea of the positive confidence spiral is all about what can we do to plan for more positive communication performance? What can we do in advance to really help us have a better performance, to come across in the way that we want to, which gives us influence and impact that really creates connection with the people we're talking to? So the first place to start from is to think about, what is this piece of communication allowing me to do? What is the overall goal? So let me give an example of that. If you are preparing for a presentation with a client and it's sharing some key insights and an action plan, then really think about, what is the broader objective? That might be about building relationships with the client, making sure that you have a really good relationship, that you keep working together, that you deliver great results for them, and that they maintain business with you and develop more business with you. And that's obviously going to have an important impact about how successful you are as an individual, as part of a team, and as part of your organization. So it might have really tangible impacts on your career. So that's really important to understand, that whenever we go into something like a presentation or a meeting where the communication is really important, to think about what's our overall goal, and that this is just a step along that journey. Yeah, so that's the kind of first point. The second point is to ask for feedback. And this is quite important, because going back to the negative confidence spiral, we sometimes get stuck in our heads and we hear our voice and it can be quite self-critical, which is clearly not a great thing. But it also might not be a very accurate view of actually how you're doing with your communication. So sometimes what I find is that when I meet clients for the first time, they have a particular perspective on where they do well or where they're not doing well. Usually it's the second part with their communication, but they don't have the objective, accurate view. So there are a couple of ways that you can do this. If you're in the meeting or the presentation with colleagues who you trust, maybe ask somebody to help you and ask them feedback after the meeting or presentation, so you can get some view of that. Alternatively, if you don't really have somebody you can ask, come and have a chat with me. So I quite regularly run evaluation sessions for clients who just want to do exactly that, get that view of where are they actually doing quite well, but where do they need to focus to develop the skills, and maybe they need some communication strategies to help them along that journey. So that's about feedback. The next point is going back to when we start getting negative and getting into our heads and worrying about what we're sounding like. If we can break through this, then I would give you the tip to focus on them, not you. So what do I mean by this? I mean that it's quite easy in this situation to get focused on how we're feeling and how what's going on in our heads. But actually, if you really think about the other people, whoever they are, whether it's the internal team that you're communicating with, whether it's customers, whether you're doing a talk externally, really focus on the other people. Think about, what do they need? What do you want them to really take away from this presentation, from this meeting? And what action do you need them to take? If you can get really focused on others, then actually our brain gets distracted. We can't split our attention so much between our voice in our head and then the other people. So I would really, really focus on other people, and that will help you also connect with others and make sure that your communication is coming across in the way that you want. Small steps. This is a journey. So, you know what, the next point is really about making sure that you understand it's not like a switch where one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be confident. It takes time. It's like a muscle, as I mentioned earlier. You build up that muscle through practice, you get feedback, you learn how to adjust your strategies, and you improve and get better. So, you know, treat it like that. You know, if you have one bad day, it's okay. That's still part of the journey. You're going to learn something from that and do something differently next time, but take a small step on that journey. And the final point, just like with the negative confidence spiral, is that you really want to learn. So, you know, capture after every large, significant part of bit of communication, learn about what went well and what you would improve next time, even in the positive communication interactions. Make sure you capture what is it you want to take forward and really work for you, and that you use next time. So let me ask you a question at the end of this Wednesday Words. Which confidence spiral are you in at the moment? I hope that if you're in the negative confidence spiral, that some of the tips and advice that I shared with you today are helpful for you. If you're somebody who is planning forward, then I hope that the positive confidence spiral helps you to think about how you're going to take this and really elevate your communication confidence. I really appreciate you joining me today for Wednesday Words, where we talked about these two types of confidence spirals. If you have any questions on this or would like some feedback, then please do get in touch with me and I'll put my details there for you. And also know that I have a free ebook, which is all about communication confidence. So if you'd like a copy of that, again, I'm going to put a link here for you. Thank you so much for joining me today for Wednesday Words. I'm Victoria Reynoldson, communication and culture coach, and I look forward to seeing you next time.